10, Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister and asks, when did he first learn that the Minister of Agriculture, the Honourable David Carter, had spoken to applicants for a water conservation order on the Hurunui River, suggesting that they freeze that application? And what action, if any, did he subsequently take?
The Honourable Bill English on behalf of the Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister, the answer is yesterday my office then talked to the Minister's office to establish the facts of the situation.
Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can he guarantee that prior to yesterday he had not received any reports or correspondence alerting him to the fact that David Carter had asked the applicants for the water conservation order to freeze it?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, the facts of the matter as I understand them are that in conjunction with the Hurunui Mayor Gary Jackson and Bede O'Malley, the Chair of the Canterbury Water Management Strategy Steering Group, the Minister discussed with all parties involved in the WCO process, including New Zealand Forest and Bird, the possibility of an integrated approach to trying to avoid the issue escalating to the Environment Court. This collaborative approach was undertaken in an attempt to avoid the combative and expensive court route and reflects the approach recommended by the Canterbury Water Management Strategy. All parties were initially positive about this approach, but subsequently some withdrew support and decided to proceed with the Environment Court action.
Entry.
Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In light of his answer, which confirms the facts of the matter that the Minister of Agriculture did approach the parties before they went to the Environment Court, does he stand by his statement in the House yesterday that it was a wild and unproven, quote-unquote, allegation for me to bring this matter to his attention?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think the unproven element of the allegation was that somehow the Minister was acting out of personal interest, and of course he wasn't. He was acting as the Minister of Agriculture, trying to bring together a collaborative strategy to get a better result for the management of water in Canterbury, and that's what you would expect the Minister of Agriculture to be doing.
Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is he concerned by the contradiction between David Carter's answer to written question 14809 from October last year, when he said that he had not discussed the water conservation order process with any of the parties associated with the Hurunui River, and his press release of yesterday, which said that he had?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Agriculture has been quite open publicly and with the Prime Minister about the facts of the matter. On the issue of the parliamentary question, you should take that up with him.
Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is it acceptable standard of behaviour for a Minister in a written question to answer no when asked whether he had discussed plans for an appeal against the application for a water conservation order on the Hurunui River with any of the parties? He answered no, and yet in his press release yesterday he said that he had discussed it with the parties. Is that acceptable behaviour for a Minister?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we wouldn't want to jump to conclusions on the basis of that member's description, but of course all ministers should strive for accuracy in answer to the parliamentary questions. I think the important point here is that the Minister was attempting to adopt the collaborative approach that has been behind the Canterbury Water Management Strategy. That didn't, in the end, that didn't work, and the parties did end up choosing the expensive court process.
Dr. Russell Norman. Point of order.
Mr. Speaker, I know that you don't agree with the tabling of questions generally, but the Minister has just said in his answer that he does not take my word for what the question said, so I seek leave to table the answer to the question.
The Minister didn't actually say that he didn't take the Minister's word at all. I didn't take that implication from what he said, but I mean, the problem with the written answer available to all members, I hesitate to seek leave for the tabling of such a document where it's readily available to all members. The member has more supplementary questions.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, the Honourable Rodney.
I just asked you to consider this. We're seeing an example at question time where the questioner says the Minister said this or the Prime Minister said that, when it's clearly not correct what is being said in the question. And we saw it just then, and you picked it up on the point of order, where in actual fact the statement on the point of order is not strictly correct, and it's getting read into the Hansard and being interpreted by the media as something entirely different. Now, there's a requirement, I accept, in question time it's harder, but on points of order to be introducing incorrect statements, I think is a mistake.
Order. No, I don't need to hear further on this. I don't think we need to take further time in the House. I respect the member's point of order because it was to do with the order of the House, but I believe the member is reading more into this situation than deserves to be read into it. I think it was available to interpretation. What the Minister said, that a member could have felt that was questioning the member's word, and therefore I don't consider that Dr. Russel Norman was misrepresenting the situation when he then sought my view as to whether he could table the answer to a written question. And I mean, there's a very marginal case, but I don't believe that the Minister was impugning the member's integrity, and neither I believe the member was totally wrong in feeling that he might have been. But I think on this occasion it's not worth taking more time in the House. The member's questions have been dealt with I think, a degree of sincerity, a lot of sincerity by the Minister in trying to answer the member's questions, and he does have further supplementary should he wish to. Point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr. Speaker, I think this problem could be, because there is a problem which happened I think yesterday as well, it could be resolved if members, when they're quoting from answers to written questions, actually give the number of the question. It then means that members can go back and trace it. It's actually quite hard to find it otherwise.
No, Order. The member, in fairness to Dr. Russel Norman, if I remember correctly, did give the number of the question. And I think on this one we're just being a little bit sensitive. The member is pursuing a matter of interest to him with his supplementary questions in a fairly effective way, and I'd ask him to continue. Dr. Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is the Prime Minister aware that the Honourable David Carter's farm on the Hurunui River, the resource consent on that farm, the irrigation is required to stop when the water in the river goes below a minimum flow, and that if the Hurunui irrigation scheme goes ahead, that the water in that river will be maintained above that flow, and hence the irrigation on Mr. Carter's farm will be enhanced as a result?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm not aware of the details of the consent on the Minister's farm. I am aware that he has been involved with discussions around irrigation in Canterbury for a number of years, and the circumstances of his farm ownership are well known.
Dr. Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can the Prime Minister tell the House whether the Minister of Agriculture has had any involvement in any discussions in Cabinet or Cabinet committees regarding the changes to Environment Canterbury?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Minister for Agriculture has an interest in his capacity as Minister and also in his capacity as a Canterbury Member of Parliament, and he's been part of, he has participated, as most ministers in Cabinet have, on the policy matters, the general policy matters around Environment Canterbury.
Point of order.
Point of order, Dr. Russell.
Mr. Speaker, I asked whether he could guarantee whether the Minister of Agriculture had been involved in any of those discussions in Cabinet and Cabinet committees.
Order. I listened to the Minister's answer quite carefully, and I believe he just told the House the Minister had been. Point of order, Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I seek leave to table a letter from the Royal Forest and Bird Protection Society to the Prime Minister in December last year regarding the intervention of the Minister of Agriculture in the water conservation
Leave us sought to table that document. Is there any objection? There is no objection. Point of order, Dr. Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I seek leave to table a file note from the Royal Forest and Bird South Island Manager regarding the intervention of the Minister of Agriculture in the water conservation order process.
Leave us sought to table that document. Is there any objection? There is objection. Question number 11, Melissa. Point of order, is it?
Yes,
Honourable
it
Dr.
is.
Nick Smith.
I excuse, this was with respect to the question earlier. I seek leave to table my letter to the opposition on the 24th of March last year offering to consult with them on the clinical review of the said